The most important sound in Israel's missile defense system is silence. Not the explosion of an interceptor hitting its target, not the roar of a Tamir missile leaving its launcher. Silence. The moment when radar tracks an incoming rocket, computers calculate its trajectory in milliseconds, and the system makes a decision that contradicts everything we think we know about defense. Do nothing, let it fall. This happens hundreds of times during every major attack. Rockets arc across the sky toward Israel, and the Iron Dome watches them pass without firing a single interceptor. To anyone raised on the idea that missile defense means stopping everything that flies toward you, this looks like catastrophic failure. It's actually the reason the system works at all. Since February 28, 2026, Iran has launched over 500 missiles and 2,000 drones at Israel in just 6 days, the largest sustained aerial assault on any nation in modern history. The Iron Dome deliberately ignored most of them, and that decision, made by software in milliseconds, repeated thousands of times, is saving more lives than any interceptor ever could. The mathematics that make this possible nearly killed the project before it started. In the summer of 2006, Hezbollah launched over 4,000 rockets into northern Israel. Cities emptied. 1 million people fled south. Existing defense systems, designed for expensive fighter jets, not cheap rockets, proved worthless. Rafael Advanced Defense Systems proposed something radical, a system smart enough to know which rockets actually mattered. Most experts called it impossible. The head of Israel's own missile defense program publicly dismissed it as a waste of money. The core problem was economic, not technical. A Qassam rocket costs about $800, a metal tube with no guidance system, manufactured in garage workshops by people with basic welding equipment. The Patriot interceptor costs $3 million. Fire 100 Patriots at 100 Qassams and the math becomes absurd. $300 million spent to stop $80,000 worth of rockets. The enemy builds more tomorrow for pocket change. A war of attrition on those terms has only one possible outcome. So the engineers asked a different question entirely. What if the system didn't try to stop every rocket? The moment a rocket launches from Gaza, radar stations along the border begin tracking. The EL/M2084 radar, a flat-faced array humming with electricity, sends out pulses and listens for returns. Banks of computers calculate trajectory, velocity, rotation. Within 2 seconds, the system knows where that rocket will land, not approximately, precisely. A probability cone narrowing with each millisecond of flight data. Operators in command bunkers watch screens filled with arcing lines, each one a rocket's predicted path. Green lines head toward empty zones. Red lines intersect populated areas. The system makes its own decisions, but humans monitor. They can override. They rarely need to. If that probability cone points toward an empty field, the system does nothing. The Mediterranean Sea? Nothing. An unpopulated hillside. The rocket falls, explodes, kicks up dirt, harms no one. The system tracked it, calculated its harmless trajectory, and made the economically crucial decision to save the interceptor for a threat that actually matters. This single choice, deliberately ignoring incoming fire, makes the entire system viable. A barrage of 50 rockets might contain only 8 that threaten populated areas. The Iron Dome fires 8 interceptors, not 50. Multiply that savings across thousands of engagements over months of sustained conflict, and a nation can actually afford to protect its citizens. The math no longer guarantees bankruptcy. Only when the probability cone intersects populated areas or critical infrastructure does the battery respond. The Tamir interceptor launches 90 kilograms of missile accelerating with force that would kill a human pilot. It climbs at an angle that seems wrong, heading not toward the incoming rocket, but toward a point in empty sky where nothing yet exists. The Tamir doesn't chase, it anticipates. Like a baseball outfielder who starts running before the ball reaches its apex, the interceptor calculates where the rocket will be, not where it is, and arrives first. The guidance system updates thousands of times per second, adjusting fins by fractions of degrees at combined speeds exceeding Mach 4, over 3,000 miles per hour. A direct collision is nearly impossible. Instead, the Tamir detonates its warhead nearby, spraying tungsten cubes in a calculated pattern that shreds the incoming rocket mid-flight. But cheap rockets present a problem beyond raw speed. A Qassam tumbles unpredictably in flight. No stabilizing fins, no guidance system, just crude aerodynamics and burning propellant. The landing zone isn't a point on a map. It's a shifting probability cloud that changes throughout flight as wind, rotation, and atmospheric density alter the trajectory in ways no simple calculation can predict. The radar tracks everything: rotation rate, velocity changes, aerodynamic wobble. The system builds a 3-dimensional probability model, updating hundreds of times per second, constantly refining its prediction of where that tumbling metal tube will finally come down. If any part of that cone touches a populated area, even briefly, the decision shifts from ignore to intercept. Each Tamir interceptor costs between $50,000 and $80,000. Against $800 rockets, the economics finally work. Fire 1,000 interceptors over a year, spend perhaps $60 million. The rockets cost less than $1 million. That ratio, 60 to 1 instead of 3,000 to 1, makes sustained defense actually possible. The current conflict reveals the system's precise role within a larger defensive architecture. The Iron Dome handles short-range rockets from Gaza and Lebanon, threats coming from about 45 miles away. In American terms, rockets fired from Baltimore toward Washington, D.C., giving civilians maybe 30 seconds to reach shelter. Iranian ballistic missiles are a completely different category. They travel at Mach 10 from over 600 miles away, like shooting from Chicago to Nashville, and require Arrow 2 and Arrow 3, interceptors that climb to the edge of space before engaging their targets. Medium-range Hezbollah threats fall to David's Sling, filling the gap between Iron Dome's ceiling and Arrow's floor. Each layer applies the same core philosophy, not total interception, intelligent triage, resources concentrated where they save lives. After June 2025's 12-day war severely depleted Israeli stockpiles, America deployed THAAD systems directly to Israeli soil, the same systems protecting U.S. troops in South Korea. In November 2025, Israel signed a multi-billion-dollar contract funded by $8.7 billion in U.S. aid, American taxpayer money, to replenish interceptors. Production lines in Arizona and Arkansas now run around the clock, manufacturing missiles that will be fired over Middle Eastern cities. The results, measured against any reasonable expectation, are difficult to argue with. Since October 2023, Israel has faced continuous rocket fire from Gaza, thousands of rockets from Hezbollah in Lebanon, attacks from Houthis in Yemen, and 4 major direct Iranian assaults: April 2024, October 2024, June 2025, and the ongoing February 2026 war. In April 2024, Iran launched 330 projectiles. Israel and allies claim 99% interception, with U.S. Navy destroyers in the Mediterranean firing American interceptors alongside Israeli systems. In June 2025's 12-day war, 550 ballistic missiles, over 1,000 drones across 12 days, 28 Israeli deaths, tragic, but a fraction of what undefended cities would have suffered. Now, Operation True Promise 4. Waves of missiles and drones targeting Tel Aviv and Haifa daily. At least 11 Israelis have died from Iranian strikes since Saturday. Without these layered American-backed defenses, military planners estimate casualties would number in thousands. No other missile defense system in history has faced this sustained intensive combat testing. None. Ever. The data isn't theoretical. It's measured in real attacks and real outcomes over years of continuous conflict. Yet the fundamental misconception persists. News anchors describe an invisible shield that stops incoming rockets. Defense analysts discuss interception rates as if the goal were 100%. The metaphor shapes public understanding, and the metaphor is completely wrong. The Iron Dome is not a shield. A shield tries to block everything that hits it. The Iron Dome is a filter. It catches what matters and lets the rest pass through. That distinction, the decision to ignore harmless rockets while concentrating limited resources on deadly ones, is the entire reason the system works when every previous approach failed. Think of an emergency room during mass casualties. Doctors triage. Limited resources go where they save lives. A patient with minor injuries waits while critical cases receive immediate attention. The Iron Dome applies identical logic at computational speed. Rockets heading for empty fields are the walking wounded. Rockets heading for apartment buildings get immediate intervention. This philosophy scales through every tier of Israeli defense. Each layer filters threats appropriate to its design. The courage to let some rockets fall, the ones that harm only dirt and empty sky, while concentrating fire on threats that would kill. Residents near the Gaza border have learned to read the system by sound alone, the faint electronic hum of radar tracking an incoming threat. Then either silence, meaning the calculation returned, no threat, or the distinctive whoosh thump of an interceptor launch. Parents count the thumps. Children learn which sounds mean they can return to sleep. The system has become as ordinary as running water, as invisible as the pipes beneath city streets. Most Israelis couldn't explain the probability cones, or the tungsten fragmentation patterns, or the economic calculations that make it all viable. They don't need to. They know that when the siren sounds, something invisible will decide which rockets matter and handle them accordingly. Not a shield, a filter. That's the secret behind the most battle-tested missile defense system ever built, hiding in plain sight in the silence between launches.